that Europe shouldn't be the United States of Europe. Hungary is the black sheep. For the US, Europe is not so important anymore. Ukraine is almost empty.
Let's start right away, and please first give my viewers a snapshot of what is the worldview of Hungary of today. How does Hungary and especially policy makers like you, policy researchers like you in Hungary view the world of today, the international affairs of today? How do they see the issues confronting the world, and what do they come forward with as solutions?
Yes, first of all, Hungary is part of the Euro-Atlantic or Western alliances, meaning the European Union and the NATO, and a quite active member of the European community and the international community. Why we are more often in the news, I would say, so compared to the size of our country, we are more frequently in the international news. It is firstly and mainly due to our Prime Minister, who has a very set view on the world, and he is belonging to the conservative right politicians. And he thinks, among others, that Europe shouldn't be the United States of Europe, but it should be rather an alliance which is based on the strong nations, strong countries with strong sovereign countries. Because now we can see some tendencies where the supranational laws are tried to be extended over the national laws, and more details of our life would be determined not in our home country but in Brussels. And our Prime Minister is very much against it, and he has a very committed and strong point when it comes to illegal migration, and when it comes to the LGBTQ or how to say this homosexuals and others' rights in our countries. Here in these fields we have several debates and I would say conflicts with the European Union headquarters and with the European Union member states, who are pushing Hungary to introduce the same very liberal policies when it comes to these topics. But in our opinion, sovereign and strong nations can survive among the nowadays circumstances where we are talking about a multipolar world already, and we are talking about blocks again, and we are talking about the end of the globalism and the globalization. So Hungary has a very committed view when it comes. I would say the Hungarian foreign policy when it comes to the crisis, especially to Ukraine, Russia. Here we are very much committed to the peace, and we are not delivering weapons and any other systems for Ukraine, and we are not supporting financially. Moreover, we are not allowing the shipments containing weapons against Russia or Ukraine, any party. So in this regard, our opinion is very close to the Central Asian or the Turkish countries' opinions, where they say that a peace should be reached via negotiations. And now we can see that European politicians are just not ready and not willing to meet any Russians. So when we say that without communication, how we can solve this issue, and we can see after Trump started, he immediately initiated talks, and he did talks with even Putin, not only with Zelensky. So yes, indeed, we have a very I would say unique approach within the European Union. Sometimes Hungary remains alone. Sometimes we feel that Hungary is the black sheep in this community. But after a few years in the past, this is the lesson and experience from the past 15 years. That after a few years, at the end of the day, they would never admit, but they will do the same what we did a few years earlier than they.
Thank you. Let's come to the European Union as an institution. What is your view in particular, and the view in Hungary, in your country in general, that is European Union of today serving its purpose? If yes, is there anything that you would like to see improving, or if it is not the case, what in your view is lacking, and how should that be addressed here?
Yes, the original goals are reached when it comes to the European Union. So or I would say the European principles. The four main pillars are the rights of freedom, meaning that freedom of movement of persons, freedom of capital movements, the freedom of tariffs, let's say, and the freedom of services. So I can live anywhere where I want within the European Union. I can travel whenever I want, and I can invest my money whenever I want. So these are very very basic principles, and these are working. You heard about the Schengen zone. It is a very strict visa regime. But once you enter Budapest, let's say, enter the European Union via Budapest or via Frankfurt, then you can move around without any restrictions, because no borders are among the countries. So this is working very well. But now what we can experience that this is the typical evolution of the bureaucracy. That after a point, the bureaucracy in the headquarters of the European Union thinks that they are over the nations and over the countries, and this is what is not acceptable for Hungary. And we initiated several times different other ways of cooperation instead of being dictated by the Brussels headquarters. The best example is the accelerated accession process of Ukraine. We are not against the EU membership of Ukraine, but we cannot accept that Ukraine would be earlier a member without any achievements and without any eligibility. And they will join the European Union as full member much earlier than the other few states, few countries who are waiting in the lobby for several years, like Albania, Montenegro, Serbia, Bosnia, or even Macedonia. So we say yes, everybody can join the European Union if they are fulfilling the criteria. But right now, the elite in Brussels figured out that for sure, due to political reasons, or I don't know exactly for what, they would accept Ukraine in their current status, which is I would say terrible, because it is an almost non-existing state with high corruption and in a very bad shape. So this would mean that the European Union member states should spend an incredible high amount of money on maintaining even the current status of Ukraine, and we are not talking about the several $1,000 billion of the cost of the recovery and the reconstruction. So what is needed in the European Union? Strengthening the sovereignty, rights for sovereignty of the nations, while we should define a common defense policy and a defense cooperation, because right now you would be surprised, but there is absolutely no cooperation in this field, because almost all EU member states are members of the NATO, and they think that if anything is happening, then the NATO will protect us. I am not fully sure about that. But as a consequence, the Western European countries, especially the Western European countries, just forgot to develop their armies. And this is leading to hard critics by Trump and by the US, that while the US is doing its job in this field, the European countries are not spending enough on their own defense. So the European Union should create its own its own institutions on the defense capacities, because the European Union is just a soft power, but not a real power. Another field is the common foreign policy, but it is a very, very hard question because each member countries have the specific interests, and I would say that each member countries are competing with each other when it comes to the, let's say, Central Asian region or Africa or Latin America. Spain is a competitor of France, or Poland is a competitor of Hungary when it comes to Central Asian markets, or even China. When it comes to these movements, then each countries are having different views, different interests. So I think that the European Union should remain at this stage, and the different efforts to strengthening the political union should be neglected, because it will lead to several conflicts, and probably even to the end of the European Union, or the European Union as it is will remain this kind of economic union, and probably few other countries, or few countries within the European Union, let's say Germany, France, and the Benelux states, they would create another club, a higher level club, and then they will do there what they want. There are different scenarios. We don't know yet what will happen, but right now we are talking about how to cut the voting rights of Hungary or the voting rights of Slovakia, because the leaders of the country are having a different opinion than the Brussels elite.
Thank you. If I get you right, what you mean is that integration is welcome, that is desired, but that should not come at the cost of sovereignty. That is number one. And European unions should have their own strong defense cooperation mechanism, and they should not be dependent solely on the NATO and particularly the United States. Am I right?
Yes. This is the nowadays public discussion of these topics. The US clearly stated that if Europe is not doing its best for increasing its capacities in this defense field, then the US won't protect it.
Thank you. And as we know that there is a war going on in your very neighborhood, you have referred to that as well. Do you wish to give us some forecast about that Russian-Ukrainian war? How do you see it?
Yes, every week different options, and every week different scenarios, as I can see, because there were an optimistic approach that Trump will manage this, but it is more and more clear that even Trump cannot solve this conflict. However, on the other side, I think the parties should negotiate continuously, and both Russia and Ukraine should give up some of their goals, because it is obvious that the Crimea or Donbass or Luhansk areas, it is impossible to get back for Ukraine. So they should make the decision whether they can accept it, or they will stuck in a 10, 15, 20 years long war. And it is not sustainable. And also Russia probably should stop at this point and saying, okay, here we are, and we would like to keep these territories. For sure, it is very, very sensitive question. But with encouraging Ukrainians to fight till the last standing soldier, it is just not fair. So Ukraine is almost empty. The people died or escaped from the country, Their main problem is not the weaponry, not the weapon systems, not the lack of the rocket, of the bombs or of the munition, but the main problem is the lack of the living forces, the soldiers. And now already are talks going on how the European countries could send soldiers to help the Ukrainians. But if they would do it, then it would be really a total war already. And I'm really curious which European youngsters are seeking to fight against the Russians in the front line. So I don't know how long Ukraine can keep its lines, or I would say they are withdrawing. By the way, day by day, few kilometers or few hundred meters. So the Russians are still advancing, and they will do it probably more intensively until they reach their goal to get this Novorossiya, so-called Novorossiya territory back. But which is true. We cannot say who is right and who is not right. But this war should be stopped because the whole world is suffering under this. And Hungary is very much committed that only the peace negotiations could help, and not the military equipment deliveries to Ukraine.
Thank you. And from this point onwards, how do you see the transatlantic relationship building, especially between United States and EU under Trump, and between Russia and United States on the other hand?
What we can see that the relations between the US and the European Union remain strategic, but for the US, Europe is not so important anymore. They are focusing on themselves first of all, and what I mentioned, that Europe should find itself, especially in the field of the increased defense capacities. But to this alliance, we can count even Japan or Australia, which leads to another problem of the conflict between China and the US. When it comes to Russia and the United States, it is clear that despite the fact that Russia's economy is quite tiny compared to the US, and especially US plus European Union, but we can see that Russia is still the largest, or at least the second largest power in the world in terms of military power. So we cannot neglect this fact, and also we cannot neglect the good relations of China and Russia. So we can see that the multipolar world is evolving, and the United States is more and more moving towards the isolation, and focusing on its own problems and on its own territories.
Thank you very much, Professor VASA. Thank you very much.